She was just a girl practicing at an empty range, until a decorated Navy SEAL stepped out of the shadows. With one silent salute, he changed her life forever. What hidden skill did he see in her? And why did he choose her? Emily James woke earlier than most girls her age. While others scrolled through phones or slept in until noon, she was already out of bed, lacing her boots in silence. Her small town on the edge of Virginia still slept when she slipped outside with her worn backpack. The air was cool, carrying the faint smell of salt from the nearby coast. Her destination was always the same: a rundown training range, far from the main road. Few came there anymore. The benches sagged, the gravel lot was uneven, and the wooden targets bore more scars than clean paper. But Emily loved it. To her, it was not just a place to shoot, it was a place to breathe. Her father had been a Marine, stern but patient. He taught her the basics when she was little, not because he wanted her to be a soldier, but because he wanted her to know discipline. He had passed away 2 years ago, leaving her with only memories and a silver challenge coin he once carried in combat. Every time she placed that coin on the wooden bench, she felt less alone. At the range, she was focused and steady. The rifle she used was old, her father's, but she cared for it with almost sacred precision. Every spring, every pin mattered. Her father's voice still guided her. Don't rush. Don't fight the rifle. Work with it. Emily wasn't the strongest, or the loudest, or the kind of person who demanded attention. She was slim, quiet, and often overlooked. Yet, when the rifle rested in her hands, she became someone else. Someone in control. That morning was no different. She loaded her magazine, set her stance, and fired. Crack, crack. Each bullet struck, close to the center, forming a tight cluster. To her, every shot was a conversation with her father, a way of keeping her promise to him, to live with focus and heart. She thought she was alone, but as she lowered her rifle, she felt a tap on her. Emily glanced up. A tall man stood at the far wall of the range. He was not dressed like the others who sometimes came here. No flashy vest, no heavy boots meant to impress. Just a plain jacket, khaki pants, and a stillness that seemed to fill the space around him. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He only watched. At first, Emily tried to ignore him. Observers weren't unusual. Sometimes curious hunters passed by. Sometimes veterans too old to shoot came just to watch. But there was something different about this man. His gaze wasn't casual. It was sharp, analytical. Emily focused back on her target. She fired again, keeping her rhythm. But when she reeled the paper back, her breath caught. The target had been changed. Someone had switched it for a smaller sheet, the bullseye barely more than a dot. Her eyes snapped to the stranger. He was near the control panel, his hand resting casually on it. He had done it. A flicker of irritation rose in her chest. Others had tested her before, doubting her because of her age, her size, or the simple fact that she was a young woman in a space often ruled by men. But this stranger wasn't smirking. He wasn't mocking. His face carried no expression at all. Intent. The few other shooters present chuckled, waiting for her to fail. Emily ignored them. She steadied her breath. "All right, Dad," she whispered under her breath. "Let's show him." She raised the rifle. The smaller target seemed impossible, but she didn't let fear win. Crack. The first shot struck. Near the edge. She adjusted. Crack, crack. Her grouping tightened. Her rhythm returned. By the end, the sheet carried a near-perfect cluster. The chuckles faded. Silence spread. Emily lowered the rifle and looked toward the stranger. His face was calm, unreadable. Then, almost imperceptibly, he gave a small nod, not amusement, not pity, respect. Her heart beat faster than it should have. Who was he? The next Saturday, Emily returned. She told herself she was there for the same reason, as always, for discipline, for peace, for her father. Yet, in the back of her mind, she wondered if he would be there again. He was. The man stood at the far end of the range, plain as before, hands behind his back, watching, not shooting, not speaking, just watching. Emily laid out her gear, placed her father's coin on the bench, and began. The first set of shots came easy, steady. When she reeled in the target, she felt almost satisfied, almost. Then she saw him move again. The targets rolled farther this time. Smaller sheets, harder to hit. Some men down the line laughed. "That'll shut her down," one muttered. Emily ignored them. She focused. Crack. The first bullet missed. Her pulse quickened. She reset. Crack. This one landed close. Crack. Crack. By the fifth round, her rhythm returned. By the last, her grouping was tighter than she believed possible. When the target reeled back, the whispers stopped. She glanced toward the man. His gaze met hers. He nodded again, sharper, this time more deliberate. Emily packed up her rifle later, her mind racing. Why was he doing this? Why her? She wanted to ask, but when she walked past him toward her truck, he only stood there, silent, unreadable, and yet, that silence carried more weight than words. The following week, the sky was gray and heavy, with drizzle. Emily almost stayed home, but something pushed her out the door. She drove the long road, the coin heavy in her pocket. The range was nearly empty. She set up in lane 7, as always. Her shots were steady, despite the damp air. But halfway through, the man stepped forward again. This time, the targets shifted in patterns, swinging, jerking, moving unpredictably. Her stomach tightened. She had never practiced moving targets like this. She whispered her father's words. "Control your breath. Trust the rhythm." The buzzer sounded. Crack miss, crack hit. She adjusted, tracking the motion, pushing herself beyond her comfort. By the end, sweat trickled down her temple, despite the cold. The results weren't perfect, but they were far from failure. She lowered her rifle, chest heaving, and looked up. The man was closer now, only a few paces away. For the first time, he raised his hand, a sharp, precise motion. A salute. Emily froze. Her breath caught. Her father had saluted her once, years ago, when she struck her first bullseye. It had not been for skill, but for heart. Seeing it now, from this stranger, hit deeper than she expected. Her throat tightened, her eyes burned, but she held. Still, when he lowered his hand, he turned and walked away without a word. Emily stood rooted in place, stunned. She didn't know his name. She didn't know his story. But she knew one thing. He had seen something in her worth honoring. And that silent salute would stay with her forever. Emily didn't go back to the range for 3 days. It wasn't that she didn't want to, it was that she couldn't quite process what had happened. That salute lingered in her mind. It haunted her at night, replaying in fragments each time she closed her eyes. Her textbooks lay unopened on her desk. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends she ignored. None of them would understand anyway. How could she explain what it felt like to be honored by a man she didn't even know? On the 4th day, she packed her bag before dawn. The coin sat heavy in her pocket as she drove the familiar road, her old pickup rattling over every bump. Her stomach fluttered with nerves. She told herself she was going for her father, for discipline. But deep down, she knew she wanted to see him again. The Chesapeake Range was busier than usual, filled with chatter and sharp bursts of gunfire. Emily slipped into lane 7, as always. She ignored the whispers from other shooters, some curious, some mocking. She set down her gear with the same care she always did, placing her father's coin on the bench like a sacred ritual. She fired her first magazine cleanly. Crack, crack, crack. Each bullet landed tight. She exhaled, satisfied, when the familiar feeling swept over her. She was being watched, her eyes lifted. There he was, standing at the far edge again, arms crossed, still, silent. Her pulse quickened. She tried not to show it, but the rhythm of her shots wavered slightly. She cursed herself. Why did his presence make her feel like every movement mattered more? She closed her eyes briefly, whispered her father's words, and fired again. The rhythm returned. She felt steadier, stronger. Then the man moved. He didn't adjust the control panel this time. Instead, he walked directly toward her lane. Emily's grip tightened on her rifle. Conversations around them quieted. The sound of his boots crunching gravel filled the air. He stopped 3 feet away. His shadow fell across her bench. Up close, Emily could see the sharp lines of his face, the faint scars near his jaw, the calm in his eyes that seemed both steady and heavy. On his jacket gleamed a small insignia, faint but recognizable. The Navy SEAL trident. Emily's throat tightened. She had seen it before in her father's old photos, a badge only a handful of warriors ever earned. The man studied her, in silence, his gaze shifting from her stance to her rifle, to the silver coin resting on the bench. Finally, with deliberate slowness, he raised his hand again. Another salute. This time, Emily's chest ached. She snapped to attention without thinking, her body moving on its own. The coin shimmered in the corner of her vision, and for a heartbeat, she felt her father standing with her again. The man lowered his hand. Then, for the first time, he spoke. His voice was low, steady, and carried authority, sharpened by years of command, discipline, heart, precision. You honor your father well. Emily's breath hitched. How did he know? Before she could speak, he turned and walked away.